in snow, some travel restrictions. So he's going to jump from the academic skills session, which is going to be later today, here and present now. He is going to be talking about navigating the skies, a serious game for exploring drone energy consumption, flight risk, and societal impact in logistics. So there you are.
Excellent, thank you very much. So my name is Ben Snow, and I'm going to be presenting Navigating the Skies. So a little bit about me. I'm an engineering doctorate student at the University of Bournemouth, but I work with a group called the eDrone Project, and this is a collaboration from 4 different universities: Bournemouth University, UCL, University of Southampton, and the University of Leeds. And this is a few of us from last week when we were at a workshop down in London, and we create various different games. So we have a VR game, we have a digital game which I'm talking about, and a board game as well, to try and communicate issues with logistics drones. So the problem that we're looking at is logistics drones to the general public are quite boring and invisible, really. No one knows very much about them. They don't know what kind of drones we're talking about. People have a mental model when you say drone to them, and it could be like a tiny little annoying drone that your neighbour has that flies around the neighbourhood. But they don't really have any clue about logistics purposes. So we thought that we'd create these digital games to try and communicate these issues and the complexity that goes with them. So when we're talking about drones, we're talking about these sort of drones. These are basically small aircraft. They can have payloads of up to 100 kilos, cruising speeds of over 100 kilometers an hour. You know, these are quite serious bits of kit. They're not small, and you definitely hear them, you definitely see them coming. And there is a risk of crashing with these drones because they're somewhat unproven technology. So depending on where you take your drone, you could be incurring risk. And if you deviate from your set path, there's quite a big energy implication. So some drones are electric, which we're looking at, but there are also diesel and petrol powered ones. And so the question comes down to where will these drones fly? And so the first component of this is risk. And so lots of people have lots of different ideas of what risk is, and I'm going to be talking about ground risk. And so ground risk is if you have your drone flying over a given area, it could malfunction and fall out of the sky and come crashing down and hit something or someone. And we want to model what the sort of probability of that happening is, and if the drone hits someone with a given energy, what's the chance of a fatality? So one of our students in the project has created these risk maps. So we take an area like Southampton on the right hand side and use lots of data like population density, the time of day, the wind, to generate this sort of risk of fatality map for any given place in the United Kingdom. And you can use this to sort of design a route based on the risk which you'll incur. And the other big thing with these drones is the energy. And so the energy we model as essentially how fast the rotors on a quadcopter are spinning. And if you don't like maths, this is just an equation that says take the route which makes the rotor spin the least amount, essentially. So it's an energy optimization algorithm. And in this case, if we compare against the van route, the UAV will just go straight from its origin to the destination point between the 2 hospitals. And so when we mix these 2 things together, we get a risk and energy optimized route, which is a sort of bent route as opposed to just a straight line. And it's not trivial where these sort of routes will be built, but there's a very complex model which goes in the background sort of figuring this out. And we want to communicate to people what goes on in this process and why drone routes may be where they are. So when designing the game, we want to think about the route planning problem. We want to include this risk data and the very rich energy data as well. We then want to include special interests so people know the local area, the things which are abundant there. So there could be nature reserves, there could be key locations like schools. And then we also want to give them a way of building a route themselves and then constrain that route. and then give them an idea of what drones flying in their area might be like with a flyover. So here's what we came up with. This is a little grid-based game. This is a very early version where each of the squares you have to select to try and get from the green flag up to the red flag. You can see a risk overlay, and each square has a risk rating, and you get to choose which sort of path you create. You can see where some local schools are, you can interact and zoom around. And here's a slightly more updated version with a bit more of a finer scale. And you accumulate risk as you go on, you use battery, and you have to figure out, okay, for me, where do I want my delivery drone to fly? For example, here you could go up and over the top of the city, but that uses more energy, but it might be less risky. You could go down over the quay, but that could be a nature reserve, so do you want to start disrupting nature? Do you want to save energy? What sort of trade-offs do you personally want to make? And lots of people have lots of different decisions. It's not obvious exactly where they go, and so we give some feedback to the player afterwards as well about the number of fatalities that may occur because of that route, which is normally a very small number. But then to bring it home, we show them a little flyover, so going over their city, and so it just gives you an idea of, this could be happening in my area, and with the game you can translate it to anywhere in the UK, so it just gives people a bit more of a grounded feel of, alright, this is somewhere in my area, and then you can change the camera angles, really zoom in and have a look around, and it sort of drives home that this could be something that's happening in their area. And so we take this to lots of different outreach events, and we try and dispel lots of myths about drones, because people think of drones used for warfare, or do a lot of small camera drones, but we really want to be talking about logistics drones specifically. And once people understand sort of the route planning problem, you can start then having more informed discussion with them and conversations. And that's where their views become really important, because people do have quite strong views about them. So we ask them questions before and after they interact with the game, and we collected some data on this, specifically about how comfortable they would be with drones flying over given areas, say their own houses or countryside, for example. And we also have a very large touch table, so this is some more of my cohort, and we have this huge 80-inch touch screen where you can get people to gather around and really have like a group conversation about a route that you've created, and sort of spark that kind of discussion. And so one of the questions we asked was, which settings would it be appropriate to fly delivery drones over? And as you can tell, not many people really like the idea of multiple drones flying over their house very, very quickly. But you do get around 10% who think, yeah, that's fine, I don't mind drones flying over my house for whatever reason. They might be used to traffic, they might be used to planes flying over, or things like that anyway, so they don't really mind. But we're looking to take the game to other areas, the countryside specifically, so down in Cornwall, where a lot of people go for recreation. And so if there are business use cases around those areas, is the trade-off of having this sort of disturbance worth it? And we want to sort of get those opinions from the general public. So in the future we want to collect more data from the game, so the routes which people have plotted, we have some data which has been collected about that, and then also the demographics of people who play the games, what sort of risk tolerances there are, based on their demographics, if there are any links there, to get some insights, and then take it to different areas. So we have Coventry, who are interested in using this, and then also down in Cornwall. But anywhere in the UK it's possible to translate the game too. And then add in additional complexity. People really zoom in and look at where they're planning the routes, and for the engaged audience member, they can ask lots and lots of questions, and there's multiple layers of complexity that can be added. So check us out. This is a little QR code. If you scan it, takes us straight to the eDrone website. There's lots and lots of different research that we do, from the risk modelling, energy modelling. But yeah, thank you very much for your time. And if you're at the demo session later, you can have a play of the game. I've got my tablet, so you can pull it out and plan your routes. Great. Thank you very much.
we have time for questions. Any questions for Ben? Yeah.
I'm just wondering, so if you, let's say, accumulate some critical amount of risk while playing the trip, so is there a chance that during the simulation the drone will really crash?
So lots of people ask that question, especially the kids. They're like, can I crash the drone? Can I do this? They get really interested in it. But at the moment, no. It just says that you haven't had enough energy to get to the point if you don't have that, or it gives you a figure at the end which says how much risk has been accumulated and what that sort of relates to other services. Say this is a van which would be travelling along there, but it doesn't crash. It doesn't do things like that. But possibly in the future, you know.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you have any statistics on how often you have accidents with the drones? To see how reliable it is? Because if you tell that this happens once in a lifetime,
yes,
the risk is much lower.
Absolutely. So a problem that we have at the moment is there just haven't been that many trials. So there's lots of regulation around drones. There's restricted airspace. So there's been one trial from Portsmouth to the Isle of Wight transporting medicine, but it took over 9 months to get approval from the Civil Aviation Authority to do that. So there have not been many trials. There have been no accidents so far, which have caused fatalities with drones, but they have obviously crashed. But yeah, at the moment, from the modelling, they do appear to be more risky than other modes of transport like cars and vans. But with those transport methods, you do have an accepted level of tolerance anyway for this. So it's trying to get that beneath that level. Does that answer? Thank you.
Yes. And just, in Galway we had Banana and it was delivered within 5 days.
Yes.
There were smaller drones. And if the weather was anyway inclement, it didn't go out.
Absolutely.
What about your drones? How are they affected by different climatic conditions?
Absolutely. So some of the bigger drones are more tolerant to adverse conditions, but there are a lot of the drones, so the slightly smaller wingspan ones, even down to 5 metres, flights would be cancelled in anything over 30 metres per second, which is at 30 miles an hour wind speeds, and gusts of about 45 miles an hour, which can be quite common, especially down on the coast. So yeah, inland less cancellations, but near around the coasts and higher wind.
And can I ask, do you bring that into your modelling as well with regard to risk that it takes into account the weather?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the risk model itself, weather is included, and so in the game we use a low wind speed, but it will affect the risk model. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. Any final questions? Yeah.
For your questionnaire, when you asked the people about their acceptance of drones, for example, about the house, were they informed about the noise levels as well, like what they can expect?
Yes, they were, yeah. So we gave a primer before discussing the game with them, which covered a few key elements. And one was noise levels. We also have a VR demonstration which sort of gives people an idea of what drones flying around would look and sound like. So yes, they were informed about the noise levels.
And did you also have like different versions, because you said you have different types like electrical and also like diesel engines?
For the questionnaires, did you say that did we have different ones there? No, we just told them that there could be an annoyance at a given flight height, but yes, the sound does change quite drastically from the two. The electric are considerably quieter. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ben.
Thanks so much.
So now we have a coffee break, 40 minutes.